You didn't stumble here by coincidence. Out of billions of signals pulsing through the web of human noise, this one found you precisely, inevitably. You could call it fate, or perhaps the quiet logic of entanglement. Something beyond sight threaded you into this exact moment, this exact frequency of words. The truth is, every encounter you have, every emotion that rises uninvited, every name that refuses to fade, they are all signals from a deeper field calling for recognition. You have felt it before, haven't you? That strange repetition, faces reappearing, patterns repeating like echoes from forgotten dreams. You meet someone new, yet the energy feels ancient. A conversation repeats across years, lifetimes, timelines. It isn't déjà vu, it's resonance evidence of a web that remembers you, a network of light woven through your consciousness. Quantum physics describes particles that remain connected across vast distances. When one moves, the other responds instantly, as though distance never existed. But what if the same principle governs your life? What if your emotions, intentions, and choices ripple through unseen corridors, shaping outcomes before you even arrive? The universe, after all, is not built of matter. It's built of relationship. You stand at the edge of realization. Everything you've ever touched, loved, resisted, or lost is still vibrating within your field. The people you think of at random are not random. The moments that haunt you are not mistakes. They are coordinates, threads of unfinished energy pulling you toward coherence. And here's the secret few dare to accept. You are both the signal and the receiver. The bonds you sense are not holding you back. They are guiding you to remember your own architecture of connection. The same light that moves galaxies moves through you. This is the moment of activation, when awareness stops being an idea and becomes breath, pulse, motion. Right now, the field listens. Right now, your entanglement begins to shift. You can feel those threads tugging, still the ones you didn't know you agreed to weave. The conversation unfinished, the lesson repeating, the face that returns under new names. What if these are not coincidences at all, but echoes of invisible contracts, energy signatures written before language, binding consciousness to its own unfinished equations? When two particles entangle, they share information across space instantly, defying logic, defying distance. The same happens within you. Each unresolved emotion, each unspoken promise, becomes a living waveform in the field. It doesn't fade with time. It loops. It waits. And you know the loop when it arrives, that familiar ache, when you meet someone who stirs an old wound, when the same argument finds a new mouth, when opportunity appears only to dissolve again at the same threshold. You can't name it, but your nervous system remembers. The body tenses, the mind anticipates, the heart repeats. These are energetic contracts, subtle yet binding. But here's the hidden key: they persist only through unconscious agreement. The moment you become aware of a pattern, the bond begins to dissolve. Awareness is the solvent of energetic inertia. It interrupts the automatic script written by history, family, culture, all the unspoken vows passed through generations like invisible DNA. Consider the friend who always mirrors your self-doubt, the partner who awakens both love and fear, the colleague who embodies your struggle for recognition. None of them are random. Each is a mirror, a node in your entangled web, amplifying frequencies that seek reconciliation. The universe arranges these encounters not to punish, but to reveal. And yet, most people react instead of observing. They fight the mirror rather than reading the reflection. They reinforce the contract by resisting it. But you are learning to pause, to breathe within the pattern rather than through it. That breath is the first act of freedom. Energetic contracts are not inherently dark. They are bridges between fragments of your consciousness, attempting to integrate what you've disowned. When you notice a repeated pain, a cyclical relationship, a persistent fear, you are not cursed. You are being summoned to awareness, to presence, to the sacred act of disentangling. Picture it, your attention like a laser, tracing the thread back to its origin. Each moment of recognition releases stored energy, unbinding the field. You don't cut cords, you dissolve them through seeing. You don't burn bridges, you illuminate them until they become pathways. The practice begins with observation. Throughout the day, notice who triggers emotion in you. Instead of reacting, whisper internally, what pattern am I witnessing through this connection? Watch what arises: memory, sensation, image. Each recognition reclaims a fragment of your power once scattered across timelines. And then comes choice. For the first time, you can respond rather than react. You can breathe where you once braced. You can observe without collapsing into the old story. That is how invisible contracts lose their hold. They cannot survive conscious participation. Slowly, your relationships begin to reorganize. People shift. Some drift away as their purpose completes. Others evolve with you, entering new harmonics of mutual awareness. The web rearranges itself according to your level of coherence. And from that clarity, a deeper truth emerges: no bond was ever meant to imprison you. Each was designed to awaken recognition that what you feared in others was simply your own light refracted through experience. The lesson was never theirs to carry. It was always yours to integrate. This is where liberation begins, not through separation, but through awareness. The loops dissolve not because you destroy them, but because you outgrow their necessity. Entanglement becomes evolution. And in that realization, the air around you seems to soften. The frequency of your field shifts slightly, quietly, like dawn finding its first breath of light. That softening, the subtle light that entered as the loops began to loosen, it's not random. It's the field responding. The moment awareness opens, communication begins in a language older than words. The universe speaks not through sentences, but through vibration, through resonance. Every glance, every tone, every silence between two heartbeats carries information. You've felt it when someone enters the room and the atmosphere shifts before a word is spoken, when laughter erupts for no reason at all, synchronizing strangers in a shared pulse, when sadness lingers in the air, though no one confesses why. These are transmissions moving across the lattice of resonance energy, speaking in its native dialect. And you, whether you realize it or not, are fluent. Your nervous system is a receiver, your breath a translator. Every cell in your body listens for coherence. When you meet someone whose frequency harmonizes with yours, your system expands. Breath deepens, time slows. When dissonance appears, you contract. Your pulse quickens. The air thickens around you. The conversation has already begun long before the first word leaves your lips. Science calls this bioresonance, coherence of electromagnetic fields. Spirituality calls it empathy, intuition, energetic reading. Both describe the same phenomenon: consciousness detecting frequency alignment. Your thoughts, emotions, and intentions all broadcast in waveforms. Others feel them sometimes consciously, sometimes not. Now imagine this: if your emotional field is chaotic, your signals scatter, but when you anchor in awareness, your field stabilizes. Your transmission clears. You stop echoing old patterns and start broadcasting clarity. That is the art of energetic language, to become intentional with the waves you send. You've seen it play out countless times. A calm person entering chaos can settle an entire space without saying a word. A single heart aligned in peace becomes a tuning fork for everyone nearby. Coherence is contagious, but so is confusion. Resonance explains why energy attracts its reflection. You draw to you not what you wish, but what you are transmitting. Every fear sends a frequency, every hope a harmonic. Reality answers in kind. That's why repeating experiences are not punishment, they're feedback. The field mirrors your internal broadcast until you learn its syntax. To listen in this deeper way, you must cultivate stillness. Silence is the amplifier of subtle communication. In silence, the chatter of thought subsides, and your perception expands to feel the invisible music of the field. You begin to hear life breathing back to you. Try this when emotion rises: joy, sorrow, frustration. Pause, close your eyes, feel where it lands in your body. That sensation is language, that warmth in your chest, that heaviness in your gut. Each is data, signal, guidance. When you follow the resonance rather than the narrative, truth reveals itself without distortion. Over time, you start noticing new dimensions of conversation. Dreams that answer waking questions, animals pausing at your presence, technology glitching when your energy spikes. The field doesn't separate spiritual from material. It translates awareness through whatever channel is available. This is what mystics once called listening to the wind, attuning to messages embedded in ordinary motion, the way a leaf falls, the timing of a song on the radio, the sudden call from a forgotten friend. Synchronicity is simply resonance made visible, and the more coherent your inner state becomes, the clearer this communication grows. The universe stops whispering through confusion and begins to speak in symphonies. You don't chase signs anymore, you become one. Resonance turns every encounter into revelation. The stranger at the cafe becomes a mirror. The delay in traffic becomes an alignment test. Every interaction hums with encoded meaning. When you interpret through resonance, you no longer ask, "Why is this happening to me?" but "What frequency is this reflecting?" That question transforms your entire relationship with reality. It turns you from victim to translator, from participant to co-creator. You stop drowning in noise and start conducting it. And somewhere in that still, listening space between your breath and the heartbeat of the world, you begin to sense the next step forming coherence, the art of alignment itself. And as that listening deepens, something begins to stabilize. The frequency no longer flickers. It holds. This is coherence, the invisible balance point between chaos and collapse. It is the moment when your inner field aligns so precisely with awareness that the universe itself begins to organize around you. Coherence isn't about control, it's harmony. It's when your attention, emotion, and intention hum in the same key. Every thought breathes in rhythm with your heartbeat. Every action carries the same tone of truth. When coherence is active, life feels effortless, not easy, but fluid. Events seem to click into place. Conversations find their natural rhythm. Decisions arrive unforced. But coherence has an opposite: decoherence. The collapse of alignment. The moment when fear, doubt, or stress fragment your signal. In quantum terms, decoherence describes the loss of a unified wave into scattered probability. In human terms, it feels like confusion, exhaustion, disconnection. You begin to live from reaction rather than awareness. You know this feeling well when one thought pulls against another, when the body tightens even as the mouth smiles, when your energy divides between past regret and future worry. The field senses this fragmentation instantly. The flow stalls, the feedback turns noisy. Synchronicities fade into static, yet even in collapse, there's an invitation. Decoherence is not failure, it's feedback. The field is showing you where your attention has splintered. It's guiding you back to alignment. Imagine coherence as a laser beam light focused into precision. Decoherence scatters that beam into fog, The difference is not in the source, but in the focus. When your energy disperses into fear, resentment, or distraction, you dilute your creative potential. When you gather it back through breath, stillness, and presence, the fog clears and power returns. Coherence begins in the body. The breath is its tuning fork. Slow inhalations tell the nervous system that it is safe to align. The heart rate synchronizes. The mind quiets. This physiological harmony becomes the foundation of energetic coherence. Consciousness rides upon the rhythm of oxygen and pulse. Then comes emotional clarity. Coherence doesn't mean suppressing emotion. It means allowing it to move cleanly through you without distortion. Anger, sadness, joy, each has its frequency. When felt fully, it resolves. When resisted, it fragments. Emotional honesty is coherence's twin flame. Mental coherence follows. The moment thoughts stop arguing with each other, insight floods in. The brain's hemispheres synchronize. Intuition expands. Decisions arrive with clarity instead of calculation. And in that moment of unified attention, something shifts in the external world. Conversations smooth out, obstacles dissolve. Probability reorders itself around your vibration. Science might call it coincidence, but your body knows better. To sustain this state, practice micro resets throughout the day. 3 conscious breaths when tension rises. A brief awareness of your posture when thoughts scatter. A whispered reminder, align the field. Each act reestablishes coherence, preventing collapse before it compounds. Groups can experience this too. When 2 or more align their intention, coherence amplifies exponentially. Shared focus becomes a harmonic bridge between minds. You've felt it the way group meditation quiets the air, or collective laughter cleanses the space. This is coherence made communal. But even collective alignment follows the same rule: inner order precedes outer harmony. You cannot bring peace to a group if your personal field is in disarray. The world reorganizes in response to your coherence, not your demand. Decoherence, on the other hand, teaches humility. It reminds you that energy is fluid, that even the most aligned state requires tending. Awareness is not a destination, it's a living pulse. When you notice collapse, fatigue, disconnection, tension, pause. Don't label it regression. See it as the field recalibrating. You're not falling back, you're rebalancing. The moment you accept that truth, coherence begins to rebuild itself. And then, like dawn emerging through mist, you feel it again, the pulse of alignment returning, a hum beneath the skin, a quiet knowing that every cell is participating in the same song. From this still balance point, another revelation begins to form, that time itself bends around your coherence, and that the past you thought immutable is waiting for your next breath to rewrite it. That hum beneath your skin, the rhythm of coherence restored, begins to ripple outward through time itself. You may notice how familiar moments reappear, how déjà vu glimmers like a code repeating through the weave of your life. But these repetitions aren't coincidence. They are echoes, entangled timelines vibrating within your field, each one waiting for recognition. In physics, entanglement means that 2 particles share the same quantum state, no matter how far apart they drift. Measure one and you influence the other instantly. But what if your past and future selves are those particles eternally connected, constantly informing each other? Every decision you make in this present moment sends shockwaves through timelines that already exist as possibilities. Each thought, each act of awareness rearranges the probabilities that define what you means. Time isn't a straight line, it's a shimmering web, and you are both traveler and architect. You've already felt its pull, that dream that repeats until you act differently, That familiar intersection where life offers you the same choice wearing new disguises. Those moments are quantum feedback opportunities to shift your relationship to time. What was once fate becomes invitation. When you relive a pattern, you are witnessing a timeline asking to be rewritten. The loop continues until consciousness intervenes. The field does not judge, it merely mirrors. Awareness collapses old probability waves and opens new ones. So, how do you shift timelines? Not by force, but by frequency. You don't fight the old loop, you transcend it by embodying a new emotional signature. The field reads your vibration, not your words. When your frequency no longer matches the energy of repetition, the pattern dissolves like mist under sunlight. Imagine standing in a hallway of mirrors, each one reflecting a version of you, the fearful you, the forgiving you, the fully awakened you. Every reflection already exists. Coherence is the act of choosing which reflection solidifies into experience. The hallway itself is the quantum field, infinite, patient, responsive. Each time you observe a repeating theme in love, work, or self-worth, pause. Instead of asking, why is this happening again, ask, which version of me is being called to the surface? The loop is not punishment, it's correspondence. Your soul is broadcasting lessons through familiar imagery because repetition is the universe's most compassionate teacher. As you shift your response, even slightly, energy reroutes. The past begins to feel lighter, as though it too exhaled. This is retrocausality awareness influencing not only what will be, but what has been. When you forgive an old wound fully, the memory itself transforms. The emotional charge fades because the timeline no longer requires it. You start to notice the ripple relationships that once felt karmic loosen their gravity. The same scenario now plays with a different tone. What once drained you now teaches you. This is how you know the field is realigning. The practical path to timeline shifting is deceptively simple awareness, embodiment, repetition of the new signal. First, notice the pattern without judgment. Second, embody the frequency of your desired reality, calm, trust, gratitude. Finally, repeat until the field memorizes it as truth. The old loop fades from resonance and collapses quietly into non-existence. Your dreams may shift too. They will start to respond to your new coherence, offering previews of futures that align with your present vibration. Keep notes. Track the correspondence. You are not predicting the future, you are co-authoring it. And then something beautiful happens. Synchronicities increase again, but they carry a different texture. They are not warnings or lessons anymore, they are confirmations. Proof that your consciousness has stabilized in a new harmonic of time. You begin to sense that the self reading these words has already transformed that another version of you, existing just beyond perception, guided you here to complete the circuit. Entanglement across timelines isn't science fiction. It's self-recognition stretched across eternity. Breathe that in. With each inhalation, you communicate to every version of yourself, past, present, future, that coherence has been restored. With each exhale, the old stories dissolve. And from this awareness, something deeper begins to stir, a recognition that not all loops began with you alone. Some threads reach further, carrying the weight of bloodlines and memories not your own. The ancestral field is calling next. That call you feel echoing through your bones. It isn't just memory, it's inheritance. The field doesn't begin or end with you. It stretches backward through generations, looping through the nervous systems of those who came before. What you carry as personality may, in part, be ancestral programming humming in your cells like background radiation. Consider how entanglement transcends space. Two particles once connected remain linked, regardless of distance. So too with bloodlines and souls. The choices, traumas, and triumphs of your ancestors ripple through time, influencing emotional patterns, beliefs, even cellular expression. Science calls it epigenetic inheritance. Spirit calls it karma, energetic memory seeking completion. And here's the secret the ancients knew. You are not merely the descendant of your lineage. You are its point of transformation. The living portal through which every unhealed pattern can finally dissolve into light. You've seen it manifest recurring family dynamics that replay across generations like clockwork. The same fears disguised as tradition. The same silence passed down as strength. The same wounds disguised as loyalty. These are ancestral entanglements, contracts written in emotion rather than ink. You may wonder why certain struggles feel older than your lifetime, why guilt or shame seems to appear without cause. That's ancestral resonance frequencies, inherited rather than earned. You are feeling the echoes of experiences your blood once carried through famine, exile, heartbreak, or war. The field remembers, but awareness changes the pattern. The moment you recognize that the weight you feel might not be yours, you open a quantum gap space for discernment. Ask gently, does this emotion belong to me or to the lineage I came from? Feel how the energy responds. The truth vibrates differently when seen. This act of differentiation is sacred. It separates empathy from burden, connection from bondage. You are allowed to love your ancestors without reliving their pain. You are allowed to honor their story without repeating their ending. Ritual helps translate this awareness into action. Light a candle not as superstition, but as signal, a beacon to the field that you are ready to release inherited loops. Speak softly. What began with you can end with me, and what healed in me frees you too. The web listens. The light travels both ways. Karmic threads function similarly, but operate beyond biological lines. They are energetic continuities of consciousness patterns, born of choice and carried across lifetimes. They manifest as inexplicable attraction, unearned fear, or profound recognition in a stranger's eyes. These are not random, they are resonance between souls completing unfinished harmonics. Karma isn't punishment, it's physics of awareness. Every thought and action sets vibration in motion. When its lesson is learned, the energy resolves. When ignored, it returns under new forms. Awareness collapses the cycle. Compassion finalizes the equation. To work with these threads consciously, cultivate neutrality. Observe recurring emotional charges without judgment. Each trigger reveals where energy still circulates unintegrated. Every act of forgiveness rewires the field. Forgiveness isn't excusing the past, it's reclaiming authority over its frequency. Your ancestors and karmic companions aren't separate from your growth. They are collaborators in evolution. Their unresolved energy seeks closure through your presence. When you breathe mindfully, you're not only calming yourself, you're soothing centuries of entangled breath behind you. Imagine this: behind every heartbeat stands a line of ancestors waiting for release. Each time you choose awareness over reaction, the chain lightens. Each time you embody compassion, generations recalibrate. The field updates itself through you. Even the earth participates. The ground beneath your feet holds memory. When you walk in nature with reverence, you reconnect those lines. The soil recognizes the coherence of your intention and mirrors it back as stillness. And when you dream those visions of unknown faces, those fleeting glimpses of lives you've never lived, they may be ancestral residues dissolving through the medium of sleep. Trust them. They are transmissions of reconciliation. This is the deeper purpose of awakening, not just personal liberation, but the cleansing of collective DNA. To awaken is to become a bridge between past and future, shadow and light, history and possibility. You are the intersection where generations meet to end their own repetition. Every breath you take consciously rewrites timelines once thought immutable. And as those ancient chords loosen, a new sensation rises, energy no longer confined to memory but embodied in motion. Awareness seeking to express itself through movement, through ritual, through action. The next revelation waits there, coherence embodied, frequency lived through the physical form. The air feels different now. Doesn't it lighter, charged, as though the very space around your skin recognizes your awareness? That's the first signal of embodiment, when realization becomes sensory. When truth begins to hum beneath the surface of your breath. The body is not a container for consciousness. It is the instrument of its broadcast. Every heartbeat is a transmission tower. Every breath a signal. Every motion a declaration of frequency. The quantum field doesn't respond to your thoughts alone. It listens to the music your nervous system plays through posture, breath, and movement. Consider this: a coherent idea held only in the mind remains potential. But when that same idea is felt, breathed, spoken, and lived through muscle and gesture, it enters the field as reality. Embodiment is the translator between dimension and experience. Without it, even the most elevated awareness remains theoretical. You have practiced embodiment unconsciously all your life. The way your shoulders tighten when you anticipate disappointment, that's energy crystallizing into form. The way your body softens when you feel safe, that's coherence restoring the flow. Your posture tells the field what frequency you believe in. So, to shift reality, you begin not with grand declarations but with micro adjustments. Breath first, 3 slow inhalations where you lengthen the spine and whisper silently, "I am here." On the exhale, release tension that doesn't belong. The field reads this as signal present, receptive, attuned. Next comes sensation. Bring attention into your palms, your chest, your feet. Feel the electricity alive beneath the skin. That current isn't metaphor, it's measurable bioelectric flow. When consciousness merges with sensation, coherence amplifies. You become both observer and signal. Movement follows. Walk as though gravity collaborates with you, not against you. Move with intention. Each step a synchronization of thought and earth. When your body aligns with awareness, your surroundings begin to align too. People respond differently. Events reorder themselves subtly around your state. Speech is embodiment's vocal extension. Words carry electromagnetic resonance. Every sentence you utter programs your field. Speak from coherence, not from reaction. Let the tone of your voice transmit steadiness. This is how sound becomes architecture. Touch also transmits frequency. When you greet someone, your handshake, your gaze, your micro-expression all communicate your state of coherence. The field between two bodies is an interface. Through it, entire emotional worlds exchange information in seconds. Conscious touch transforms relationships faster than hours of dialogue. Even stillness has a frequency. When you sit in silence, aware of your heartbeat, you emit a stabilizing wave. Others near you unconsciously sync to that rhythm. This is why presence heals more deeply than advice. Your coherence becomes a tuning fork in the collective field. To deepen embodiment, ritualize awareness. Create small anchor points in daily life. A breath before unlocking your phone. A pause before eating. A moment of gratitude while walking. Each ritual reclaims scattered attention and signals to the field. I am awake within matter. Energy scanning refines the process. Periodically, move your attention through your body as light, noticing where it flows smoothly and where it resists. Wherever tension resides, breathe into it until the current softens. This is not imagination. It is maintenance of the energetic circuitry through which consciousness travels. As you embody coherence more fully, you'll notice others responding to you differently, not because of words, but because of resonance. Environments will feel calmer in your presence. Synchronicities will cluster around your movements like magnetized dust. The field is reflecting the language your body now speaks fluently. Understand this embodiment is not perfection, it's participation. It's choosing to inhabit each moment rather than conceptually analyze it. The mind theorizes coherence, the body performs it. And there's one more layer: collective embodiment. When groups move, breathe, or focus together with shared intention, their frequencies interlace, amplifying exponentially. This is why synchronized meditation, dance, or even collective stillness feels electric. It's coherence multiplied, embodied through many instruments playing one unseen song. So as your awareness stabilizes in form, you begin to sense boundaries differently. You start to feel where your energy ends and another's begins, not as defense, but as clarity. And that clarity leads directly to the next initiation: sovereignty, the art of ethical entanglement, where freedom and connection coexist in perfect balance. That clarity you now feel, the quiet knowing of where you end and another begins, is sovereignty awakening. It isn't a wall, it's a rhythm, a frequency that holds its shape while still allowing harmony with others. True sovereignty is coherence that respects freedom on both sides of the bond. In the quantum field, no system exists in isolation, yet each maintains its distinct signature. Particles entangle, but they do not lose identity. Their unity does not erase individuality. The same principle applies to human connection. Love, friendship, family, community all operate through entanglement. Yet ethical resonance requires honoring the independence of each consciousness. When you attempt to control or manipulate another's energy, even with good intentions, you create decoherence. The field tightens. The dance becomes distorted. Control is fear masquerading as care. Sovereignty, on the other hand, trusts the intelligence of the field. It knows that alignment cannot be forced, only invited through example. You may notice how energy exchanges shift as your awareness grows. Conversations that once drained you begin to reveal their hidden mechanics. The subtle pull to fix, to please, to rescue, these are remnants of unconscious contracts. They collapse when you choose presence over performance. Sovereignty doesn't mean withdrawal, it means engagement without entanglement. To stand centered in your frequency, listening fully, loving deeply, yet never abandoning your inner coherence. It's the art of remaining grounded while the world's tides move around you. Before any interaction, you can anchor this state with a simple intention. I honor my field and the field of all others. I offer clarity, not control. This silent declaration realigns energy instantly. The nervous system relaxes. Communication becomes transparent. Boundaries are the geometry of energy. They are not barriers, they are design, just as atoms maintain orbit through balanced distance. So too do humans maintain harmony through respectful space. Your boundary says to the universe, I am coherent enough to meet you without losing myself. When two sovereign beings interact, entanglement becomes art. The field between them is alive, dynamic, reciprocal, self-correcting. Energy flows freely without attachment. Incoherence, however, arises when either party projects unmet needs into that space. The bond then becomes a mirror of old patterns rather than a bridge to new awareness. Ethical entanglement begins with consent, always. No energy work, emotional probing, or spiritual influence is valid without it. Every soul has the right to its own pace of evolution. Even silent intention must respect autonomy. Attempting to shift someone's field uninvited, even for their good, introduces resistance. The universe honors consent as sacred law. It mirrors back your respect for others through the respect you receive in return. When you uphold sovereignty in your connections, synchronicities align smoothly, collaborations feel inspired, and misunderstandings resolve naturally. You might wonder, how do I remain compassionate without absorbing others' chaos? The answer lies in witnessing, not carrying. Imagine your awareness as clear glass, transparent, reflective, unburdened. You allow energy to pass through. Observe its colors, but do not hold them. Compassion observes suffering. Codependence inhales it. Energetic hygiene is essential here. After deep interaction, take a moment to clear your field. Breath, water, sound, or silence each can recalibrate coherence. Whisper softly, I return all energy to its rightful source with gratitude. The web understands gratitude. It uses it as signal to reset. The paradox of sovereignty is that it deepens connection. When you no longer demand, others feel safe to be authentic. When you no longer project, truth emerges. The field between you becomes a sanctuary, a place where evolution happens naturally. Relationships born in sovereignty resemble quantum symmetry, distinct yet harmonious, interdependent yet free. They mirror the balance of the cosmos, gravity and expansion, wave and particle, self and whole. You'll notice your interactions start to evolve. Conflict resolves through clarity. Attraction becomes recognition rather than need. Love shifts from magnetism to resonance. You begin to experience unity without fusion, the hallmark of ethical entanglement. And from this sacred balance, another mirror arises, the shadow within. For even as you master boundaries, the field still reveals unintegrated aspects of self. The next passage of awakening requires stepping into that mirror, facing the reflection you've avoided. There lies the true test of coherence. The mirror stands before you now, silent, reflective, honest. Everything you've avoided seeing waits patiently within it. Because coherence isn't only built by light, it's tempered by shadow. The parts of yourself you've denied are not enemies, they are coordinates, hidden maps pointing toward wholeness. You begin to realize that every person who ever triggered you, every situation that stirred discomfort, was a messenger carrying fragments of your disowned energy. The universe, in its strange precision, sends mirrors instead of punishments. Each reflection says, look again. You left part of yourself here. Shadow isn't darkness. It's simply the unintegrated spectrum of your own frequency emotions you refuse to feel, truths you were taught to fear. The moment you bring awareness to them, the charge begins to soften. The field doesn't judge shadow, it translates it. Resistance amplifies distortion, acceptance restores coherence. Consider anger. Beneath its heat often lives the voice of suppressed truth. Or envy beneath its sting, the recognition of your own unlived potential. Shame hides unclaimed innocence. Every shadow conceals a resource waiting for retrieval. You might ask, why does the field keep showing me pain? I thought I'd healed because healing is layered. Each timeline contains its own echo. What you resolve in one dimension often reappears subtler in another, not as failure, but as refinement. The field is teaching you mastery, not punishment. The practice begins with presence. When a trigger arises, pause before the reaction takes form. Breathe into the sensation, not the story. Feel the heat in your chest, the tightening in your throat, the electricity in your hands. Those are not enemies, they're signals. They mark where energy froze in time. Ask softly, "What are you trying to tell me?" Then listen, not with the mind, but with the body. An image, memory, or phrase may arise. Witness it. No commentary, no editing, just awareness. In that witnessing, the loop begins to dissolve. Shadow work is the alchemy of light through observation. The goal is not purification, but integration, to reclaim every fragment of yourself scattered through denial. You can even speak it aloud. "I see you. I welcome you home." The field registers this as reconciliation, coherence expanding through inclusion. As you practice, life itself becomes your mirror laboratory. The coworker who irritates you reveals your suppressed authority. The critic online echoes your own self-doubt. The patterns that exhaust you show where your energy still negotiates for approval. Each reflection invites the same response: awareness, breath, reintegration. The paradox of shadow is that it is both personal and collective. Some aspects you carry aren't yours alone, they belong to the human field. The fear of rejection, scarcity, isolation, these are ancestral imprints stored in collective memory. When you integrate them consciously, you don't just heal yourself, you lighten the density of the whole. Shadow work isn't glamorous. It's tender, often quiet. Some nights it looks like journaling through tears. Other times it's the stillness after choosing not to react. But every such moment reclaims bandwidth from unconscious projection. Slowly, the fog lifts. The world starts to appear less hostile, more reflective. And then a shift occurs. The same people who once triggered you begin to inspire compassion instead. Their behavior hasn't changed. Your perception has. You've ceased vibrating at the frequency of resistance. The mirror becomes transparent. What once felt like opposition now feels like information. Shadow reveals your blind spots, but it also unlocks hidden gifts. The depth of your empathy was forged in past pain. The strength of your boundaries arose from earlier violations. The wisdom you now embody was distilled through what once felt unbearable. Integration converts wounds into wisdom circuits. So, the next time discomfort appears, smile softly. It's a summons to deeper coherence. You no longer have to chase light or banish darkness. You become both luminous and grounded, aware and embodied. This is the architecture of wholeness, each reclaimed fragment becoming a note in the great chord of your consciousness. Shadow integration doesn't end. It evolves. Every cycle brings richer texture, finer tone, and as the internal duality dissolves, you sense the field shifting again, not just within you, but around you. Because when one consciousness achieves coherence through wholeness, it broadcasts stability into the entire lattice. The personal becomes planetary, the micro becomes collective, and that is where we go next, to the great ripple of awakening moving silently through humanity itself. You can almost feel it, the field widening, the edges of your awareness brushing against something vast, something shared. That sensation of expansion isn't imagination. It's the moment personal coherence begins to merge with the collective wave. Every time one consciousness stabilizes in truth, it broadcasts resonance into the network of humanity, like a tuning fork placed against the body of the world. Your coherence vibrates outward, inviting others to match its tone. What you integrate within yourself does not stay contained. It travels through entanglement, echoing across minds, hearts, and timelines. Think of it as morphic resonance patterns of energy replicating across the collective field. One act of awareness creates a template for others to access more easily. When you forgive, you make forgiveness easier for everyone. When you embody calm in chaos, you send out a frequency blueprint of peace. Consciousness evolves through shared codes. You've seen glimpses of it, how one person's presence can settle a whole room. how a movement begins with a whisper and spreads like wildfire through unseen channels. These are not coincidences. They are the quantum mechanics of awakening. Coherence scales. Imagine millions of individual fields aligning, each broadcasting clarity instead of confusion. The interference patterns of fear begin to cancel themselves out. What emerges is harmony, the collective waveform reorganizing into higher order. The world doesn't need fixing, it needs tuning. Your part in this is both simple and immense. Stay coherent. Keep your field clear. Every breath of awareness feeds the lattice of awakening. Every micro-act of integrity, the honest word, the mindful choice, the compassionate silence reinforces the geometry of collective balance. When you walk through the world, you are not merely moving through matter, you are carrying coherence into every environment. The air remembers you. The ground beneath your feet adjusts. Space itself becomes more navigable for those who follow. Communities that align around shared intention amplify exponentially. 2 coherent hearts double their signal. 10 create a resonance sphere that can transform entire networks. You've felt it in gatherings, in meditations, in moments when the room seems to pulse with one breath. That's the collective field reaching critical mass. Yet the path remains humble. You are not asked to save the world, only to become a clear node within it. Global transformation is the sum of local coherence. Every moment you choose alignment over reaction contributes to planetary stabilization. Every choice of presence is a ripple through the quantum ocean. The science of light tells us that coherence produces laser focus energy that travels further without scattering. The same law applies here. The more coherent your consciousness, the further your influence travels not through willpower, but through natural resonance. Even technology reflects this truth. The networks that connect humanity mimic the invisible ones already woven through the quantum field. Messages, ideas, frequencies all traveling faster than comprehension, guided by the same principle entanglement, consciousness expanding through connection. And what of the Earth itself? It, too, participates. The Schumann resonance, the planet's electromagnetic heartbeat, shifts subtly in response to human emotion. The collective nervous system of humanity and the living body of Earth are one circuit, breathing each other into coherence. When you meditate, pray, dance, or breathe with awareness, you harmonize with this planetary rhythm. You contribute to the unseen orchestra, tuning itself toward balance. This is what awakening means beyond the self, not escape, but participation. The collective quantum shift won't arrive as an event. It's unfolding now through every act of conscious embodiment. The old structures that relied on fear begin to collapse not because they are attacked, but because they can no longer find resonance in the new field. You might wonder, what difference can one person make in a system so vast? But look closer. Every system is made of nodes. Every field of frequency points. The universe multiplies coherence, not numbers. A single aligned consciousness outweighs 1,000 scattered ones. This is the hidden architecture of evolution, personal mastery feeding collective ascension, each breath of clarity contributing to the repatterning of the whole. So when you doubt your impact, remember this: the field has already changed because you noticed it. You reading these words is evidence of entanglement at work. Awareness meeting awareness across time and screen, merging into coherence. Now breathe and imagine the ripple expanding outward, across the planet, across the timelines, across the endless lattice of light that binds us all. You are both the wave and the witness, the signal and the receiver, the individual spark and the collective flame. And as the final pulse of this transmission settles into silence, the invitation becomes clear. Remain coherent, stay embodied, act with reverence. The field listens, always. The field is quieter now, the pulse steady, the transmission complete. Yet even as the words fade, their resonance continues not as sound, but as presence. You may notice a softness settling into your body, a widening of space behind your thoughts. That is coherence taking root. What began as theory has become texture, felt, lived. The invisible threads no longer pull, they hum in harmony. You are no longer chasing alignment, you are breathing it. Across this journey you have touched many layers, unseen bonds, emotional languages, timelines entangled across centuries, ancestral echoes, the alchemy of shadow, the ethics of connection, the hum of collective coherence. Each insight has been a thread returning to one simple truth. Consciousness is relationship. Every moment of awareness reorganizes the web, and now, standing at this still point, you may sense that nothing truly needed fixing. Every repetition, every entanglement, every collapse was the universe remembering itself through you. You were never outside the field. You were the field learning to see its own reflection. The invitation from here is gentle, no grand effort, no forced transformation, just consistency. Breathe with awareness, move with intention. Speak as though sound shapes matter, because it does. Notice how the field responds, not to command, but to coherence. If you wish, place a hand over your heart. Feel the steady rhythm. Whisper inwardly, I am aligned. I am aware. I am free to create from clarity. Let that vibration ripple outward through your room, your city, your lineage, your timeline. Every conscious breath you take adjusts the collective pattern. Every act of integrity, every pause before reaction stabilizes the larger wave. The work continues, not in striving, but in living as signal. So we close not with an ending, but a return to silence, to the hum beneath all things, to the spacious awareness that holds galaxies and gestures alike. Stay here for a moment longer. Listen, the field is listening back.